What are your thoughts about Jameis Winston?
Well, I think it's a consensus among Florida State fans and boosters that he was an embarrassment in a lot of ways to the university. He won a lot of ball games, probably one of the best football players that ever attended Florida State, but he hurt himself off the field. And the good news is he's young enough to get over that. You know it? And but he's got to do that. He just can't make those junior high school decisions that he made when he was in college.
Well, a day after legendary Florida State coach Bobby Bowden said that about Jameis Winston and was thinking that he was considered an embarrassment to the Florida State community, Bucs head coach Lovie Smith fired back by saying this: "That's a strong statement to make about any young man, that he is an embarrassment. Jameis Winston is not an embarrassment," and I don't think Bobby Bowden is speaking for the Florida State and making a statement like that. Normally, when you're in the family, you protect the family. All right, Stephen A., Skip Bayless, I'll start with you first. Tell me, whose side are you on?
Stephen A., look, let me put it this way. I understand what Lovie Smith said yesterday. I liked it because it's what he should have said. He should have defended his very young new quarterback. But I'm on Bobby Bowden's side here because I think he got a bad rap. We love Paul Feinbaum. We love his show. We've had him on our show.
Yes, we do.
He is the best. And yet, what got a little lost in the translation was the full question that Paul asked Bobby Bowden that elicited this answer that we just heard. And I'm just going to read just quickly. This is Paul on his show saying, "Jameis Winston, many people thought he was an embarrassment to your great University of Florida State. He won the Heisman, won national championship, #1 player chosen. But the controversy," said Paul, "never seemed to leave him, including the day he was selected. He was sitting there in Bessemer, Alabama, on one of the greatest nights of his life, and he flashes the crab legs." Then we heard the question there, what are your thoughts on Jameis Winston? Well, clearly, there's nothing wrong with the question. It was an informational question, but it sets up Coach Bowden to say, I think it's a consensus among Florida State fans and boosters he was an embarrassment in a lot of ways to the university. Well, he was. We talked and talked and talked about it. But then Coach Bowden went on to say he was also maybe one of the greatest players who ever played at Florida State, and Coach Bowden coached there a long time. And the good news is that he's young and has a chance to mature. Well, that's a fair answer. I don't think he should be condemned for that answer. I think it was an honest answer. Again, I'm going to side with Coach Bowden, but I don't want to condemn Lovie for defending Jameis, which is his job. It's what he should have done. But again, I think in the context of what could be perceived as a little bit of a leading question, I think Coach Bowden was trying to please Paul there a little bit by jumping right to the conclusion, yeah. And again, the bottom line, the irony here, the painful irony for Coach Bowden is, in his tenure, he coached a number of players who were also an embarrassment under Bobby Bowden to the university. So that's why it seems a little hypocritical on Coach Bowden's part. But I thought his answer was pretty balanced.
Skip Bayless, I 100% agree with you. I can respect where Lovie Smith is coming from, but Lovie Smith is a grown man and a head coach, and he has an obligation to decipher particular words and their meaning. Bobby Bowden, the operative word in his entire statement is was. Not is an embarrassment, but was an embarrassment, because your past transgressions were embarrassing to the University of Florida State. That happens to be fact. That happens to be something that Lovie Smith himself cannot debate. Now, we wish Jameis Winston well, and obviously some of the situations that he found himself in were relatively innocuous. Obviously, the sexual assault allegations were not. But definitely, when it comes to how he behaved himself and how he came across from time to time, it was. And it was particularly embarrassing because we were talking about Florida State for all the wrong reasons. Bobby Bowden also highlighted a reality that Lovie Smith is not qualified to debate. And that is, I think it's a consensus among Florida State fans and boosters that he was an embarrassment. I think Bobby Bowden would know about that a little bit better than Lovie Smith. There's nothing to debate there. Bobby Bowden coached and won national championships and were considered one of the iconic figures in the history of college football. And it was done at Florida State. If anybody knows and can gauge the feelings, the tenor, the emotions of Florida State fans and boosters, I'm sorry, Skip, do you know anybody more qualified than Bobby Bowden to speak on that?
No.
I don't. No. I don't. So, again, we understand that Lovie Smith is coming to the aid of his new quarterback, and he wants to move forward. And he should have said that. Jameis Winston was a kid. He made mistakes, but we're moving forward, etc. But to come to his defense to this degree gives the impression and the indication that, again, you're trying to gloss and floss over apparent transgressions that don't need to be ignored.
Yeah.
And it might behoove him to sit there and say, you know what? Jameis Winston made his share of mistakes, which he openly admits. We consider him a young man who made mistakes. We have no doubt that he's a better man for it. We have no doubt that he's going to be a star for this franchise, not just as a player, but as a human being, because I believe in Jameis Winston, and I believe he's going to be everything they're advertised, both on the field and I think off the field. He's going to be fantastic as well. But the reality is that what Bobby Bowden said was right on the money. And he's more qualified than anybody to speak on it. Nobody's saying that he didn't have his share of players under his stewardship where they were an embarrassment to the program. But he wasn't asked about that by the great Paul Feinbaum.
Yep.
He was asked about Jameis Winston.
Last point,
and he
Bayless.
gave an honest answer.
The past tense is exactly right. I am all in on Jameis like you are. I think he's going to grow into the leader of this franchise. He was clutch on the field, and I think he leads young men off the field, and he has the great Derek Brooks and other Florida State alums to help mentor him off the field. So I'm all in.
On his second chance. We leave it there. Yeah. There will be talk for years, but does A-Rod belong in the Hall of Fame? That is the conversation after the break. We'll be right back in just a few moments.
Woo! First take, every word great. Direct and produce verbs, check out their wordplay.
Good morning, everyone. One day closer to Friday, the weekend. It's Thursday. Kerry champion Skip Bayless, Bristol, Connecticut, where it's fairly cool. Feels good outside. Stephen A. Smith, he's in Chicago. Surprise, surprise. How are you? How's the Windy City?
Good morning. How y'all doing? How's everything?
We're good. How are you in Chicago?
Oh, it's a disastrous. I was running out to catch a flight yesterday. I forgot my makeup. I forgot my clothes. I forgot everything. I forgot everything trying to catch my flight. So, needless to say, I'm a bit shabby this morning. Y'all are going to have to forgive me.
I would have never noticed.
I would have never noticed. You look fine to us.
You just look sensational.
No, Kerry. Skip means it differently. He's saying he wouldn't have noticed because I look no differently as if to imply.
Oh, I was being nice.
That's what he's trying to do.
I was actually being nice, too.
Okay, all right.